The gala was supposed to be flawless. Crystal chandeliers glittered like frozen stars above the ballroom, reflecting in glasses of champagne and the polished shoes of men who never bent for anyone. Cameras flashed, stockholders whispered in corners, and the city's most powerful names circled the stage like wolves sniffing profit. At the center of it all stood Adrian Blackwell, the CEO whose name alone could make markets shake. Tall, broad-shouldered, black suit pressed to perfection, he was the embodiment of untouchable power. His reputation was as cold as the steel towers he owned. And then his glass slipped from his hand. At first, no one noticed. A minor tremor, a faint stagger. But then his knees buckled, his body convulsed once, and the mighty Adrian Blackwell crumpled onto the marble floor with a sound that silenced the entire hall.
Gasps.
Screams. Phones flew up to record. Call the doctor. Get the paramedics. Move, don't touch him. Executives stumbled forward, but their polished shoes froze inches away. The company's future was collapsing in front of them, and not a single one dared kneel on the floor in their designer suits. Adrian's lips were pale, his breathing ragged. His eyes fluttered open once, unfocused, catching fragments of chandeliers and terrified faces. He tried to speak, but only a choked sound escaped his throat. Cardiac arrest, someone whispered. He won't make it, another muttered. The CEO, the man who had destroyed rivals with a word, was dying. And nobody moved. Outside the ballroom, in the shadows where the golden light did not reach, Elena pressed her back against the wall. Her clothes were torn at the sleeves, her shoes mismatched, her hair tied with a fraying ribbon. She had snuck into the hotel for warmth, drifting near the kitchens for scraps, until the noise of panic drew her to the door. She shouldn't have looked. She shouldn't have cared. But when she saw him, his body twitching, the people circling like vultures but doing nothing, her heart slammed in her chest. No, she whispered, fists clenching. Her brother had died the same way in the streets.
No one had help then.
They had all walked past, muttering that it wasn't their problem. She had screamed for hours, but the city had swallowed his life like he was nothing. Not again. Elena shoved the guards aside and rushed into the light. Hey, one barked, grabbing her arm. Let me go, she snarled, wrenching free with a strength born of desperation. He's dying. Gasps spread as the ragged girl fell to her knees beside Adrian Blackwell. Stockholders were coiled in disgust, some covering their mouths at the sight of her dirty jacket and scraped hands. Security, get her out. But Adrian's eyes, half closed, dimming, caught hers. And in that split second, she swore she saw something. Not power, not cruelty, just fear. A man staring at the end. She slapped his cheek lightly. Stay with me, damn you.
Blood.
He needed blood. She could see it in the way his veins shriveled against his skin, the way his lips had turned gray. No doctor here could arrive in time. Does anyone know his blood type? She shouted. Silence. Executives looked at each other, horrified. And no one? Her voice broke. She didn't hesitate. She bit down on her lip, grabbed the emergency medical kit one trembling staff member had dropped, and without waiting for permission, she pulled out the transfusion line. You can't. She's insane. She's not clean. Their protests were a storm around her, but her hands were steady. She had nothing. No job, no family, no future. But she had blood.
And it was enough.
She tore her sleeve open with her teeth, slid the needle into her own arm, and connected the line to him. Pain burned, but she clenched her jaw. Live, she whispered fiercely, as crimson flowed. You don't get to die while they stand here and watch. Minutes stretched like eternity. Her vision blurred, the world tilting, but she refused to pull away. His chest jerked, breath hitching, until suddenly, his fingers twitched against hers. Gasps rippled. A weak heartbeat echoed on the monitor someone had connected. He's stabilizing. Elena sagged, sweat dripping down her temple, her body trembling from the blood loss. She met his half-lidded gaze. Those dark eyes, once sharp enough to cut glass, now locked onto her face with raw, bewildered intensity. He whispered, hoarse, barely a breath. "Why you?" Her lips trembled. "Because no one else would." And then her vision went black as she collapsed against his chest, still tethered to him by the fragile line of blood. Flashing lights. Shouted questions. The smell of antiseptic and cold steel. Elena's eyelids fluttered open to chaos. She wasn't in the ballroom anymore. She was in a stark white hospital room, her arm wrapped in bandages and 4 dripping into her veins. Her body felt hollow, her head dizzy, but the memory of what she'd done came rushing back like fire through her chest. The CEO. Her gaze darted left. And there he was, Adrian Blackwell, propped on the hospital bed beside hers, hooked to monitors, chest rising steadily with every precious breath.
Alive.
Alive because of her. Before she could even breathe in relief, the door burst open. A wall of suits stormed in, executives, lawyers, and bodyguards with earpieces. Behind them, reporters jostled and shoved, shouting, "Is it true the homeless girl saved him? Was it a publicity stunt? Mr. Blackwell, do you acknowledge her as your donor?" Elena stiffened. Their gazes sliced through her like knives, some with disgust, others with greedy calculation. She could almost hear their thoughts. How dare a girl like her touch our CEO? How do we spin this before the markets open? A lawyer in a gray suit sneered, pointing at her. "Security, remove this vagrant at once. She contaminated the transfusion. This could be a liability nightmare." Elena's chest burned. After everything, after bleeding herself dry, they wanted to erase her? She sat up, dizzy but defiant, her voice sharp enough to cut the room in half. "Contaminated?" she snapped. "He's breathing because of me. None of you lifted a damn finger while he was dying on the floor. I did." The room stilled. Executives exchanged nervous glances. Reporters leaned forward eagerly, recording every word. Elena's hands shook, but she clenched them into fists. "You call me trash, a liability, a stain on your company image? Fine. But remember this, when the man you worshipped was on the edge of death, all you did was stand there and watch. I didn't." For a moment, silence reigned. Then applause. It was just one sound, faint but steady. Adrian's grandmother, regal in her silk shawl, had stepped quietly into the room. The matriarch's sharp eyes softened as they lingered on Elena. She smiled. Not the polite smile reserved for press photos, but something warm, approving. "Finally," she murmured, voice trembling. "Someone with courage." Adrian stirred weakly, lids fluttering open. His gaze found Elena instantly, as though tethered by an invisible thread. His voice was hoarse, but unmistakably his, commanding even in fragility. "No one touches her." The words cut sharper than any blade. Executives froze. Security stepped back. Elena's throat tightened. She had expected denial, dismissal, anything but that. But Adrian's eyes, they held something unreadable. Gratitude?
Confusion?
Or a dangerous spark of something more. Reporters erupted again, shouting questions. "Mr. Blackwell, who is she? Did you know her before tonight? Are you acknowledging a personal connection?" Adrian didn't answer. His gaze never left Elena's. Her pulse hammered. She wanted to run, to vanish into the streets again, where no one could corner her like this. But something in his look, raw, searching, vulnerable, rooted her in place. For the first time, Adrian Blackwell wasn't the untouchable CEO of skyscrapers and empires. He was a man who had been pulled back from the abyss, staring at the stranger who defied the world to save him. And for the first time, Elena felt afraid, not of them, but of what she had just stepped into. Because this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something that could destroy them both. The hospital room had emptied hours ago, but the storm Elena had stirred lingered in the air. The cameras were gone, the executives silenced by Adrian's command, but the weight of their gazes remained heavy on her skin. She sat by the window, her bandaged arm propped on her lap, staring out at the skyline. The city glittered in the distance, towers of glass and steel like fortresses. A world that wasn't hers. A world that had already swallowed too much of her life. "You should be resting," His voice cut through the silence, deep and controlled, though still rasped from weakness. Elena turned. Adrian Blackwell was awake now, sitting upright against the headboard, monitors blinking steadily beside him. His dark eyes were fixed on her, not cold, but unnervingly sharp, as if he was dissecting her very soul. "I've rested enough," she said flatly. He studied her, his expression unreadable. "Why did you do it?" She almost laughed. "Because everyone else stood frozen while you were dying." "That's not an answer." Her jaw tightened. "What answer do you want? That I was desperate for money? That I thought saving you would buy me a golden ticket out of hell?"
Sorry.
"I don't have some clever scheme. I just didn't want to watch another man die while the world looked away." The words hit harder than she expected, dragging the shadow of her brother's face into the room. She forced herself to look away, blinking back the sting in her eyes. Adrian's gaze softened for the briefest flicker, then hardened again, a shield snapping back into place. "You risked your life. For a stranger." "You're not a stranger anymore," she whispered before she could stop herself. Silence pressed between them, heavy, charged. His eyes darkened, something unreadable swirling in their depths. And then suddenly he chuckled. Low, bitter. "You have no idea what you've done, do you?" Her head snapped toward him. "Excuse me?" "You tied yourself to me," Adrian said, his tone dangerously calm. "The world saw it. They'll pick apart your life, every secret, every scar. You think saving me freed you? It chained you."
To me.
"To my enemies. To this empire." Elena's chest tightened, fury sparking through the fog of her exhaustion. "I didn't ask for any of that. I didn't do it for power or glory." "No," he said, voice dropping to a near whisper. "That's exactly why it terrifies me." For a moment, their eyes locked, fire and ice colliding. Her pulse raced. She hated the way his presence filled the room, the way his stare crawled beneath her skin. And yet, some traitorous part of her wanted to step closer, to test what lay behind that steel mask. She shoved the thought down. "I'm leaving tomorrow." Adrian's gaze sharpened. "You think you can?" Elena blinked, anger rising. "What's that supposed to mean?" He leaned forward, wincing slightly, but refusing to break eye contact. "The moment you step out of this hospital, the press will swarm you. They'll call you my mistress, my savior, my blackmailer. They'll rip you apart. Unless," he paused, his voice laced with dangerous finality, "you stay where I can protect you." Her breath caught. Protect? Or control? She stood abruptly, ignoring the dizziness that followed. "I don't need your protection. I've survived worse than gossip." His eyes flickered with something darker, frustration, maybe even jealousy of her defiance. "You saved my life, Elena. That makes you mine whether you like it or not." Her heart slammed. "I am not yours," she hissed. The words hung like a blade in the air. For the first time in years, Adrian Blackwell looked unsettled. Not by a rival, not by an empire crumbling, but by a ragged girl who refused to bow to him. A knock shattered the tension. Adrian's grandmother stepped in, her sharp eyes flicking between them. She smiled faintly, almost knowingly. "Good," she said softly. "Finally, someone who dares to talk back to him." Elena's face flushed, but Adrian's jaw clenched, his fists tightening against the sheets. Because deep down, in the silence between their words, they both knew the truth. This wasn't over. It was only the beginning. The penthouse glittered with cold wealth, glass walls opening to the night skyline, marble floors polished until they reflected the city lights. Elena stood at the edge of the living room, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. She'd protested coming here, but Adrian's grandmother had insisted. "You saved him. You will stay where you're safe." Safe. The word felt foreign. Adrian entered quietly, dressed in black slacks and a half-unbuttoned shirt, his presence commanding even in silence. He stopped only a few feet away, studying her with the same intensity that had unsettled her since the hospital. "You don't belong on the streets anymore," he said finally. "From now on, you'll stay here." Elena spun toward him, fury rising. "You think you can cage me in your palace? I'm not some charity project you can keep as a reminder of your survival. His jaw tightened. This isn't about charity. Then what is it about? She demanded. Adrian's eyes darkened, his voice low.
Control.
Protection. Call it whatever you want, but after what happened, you are tied to me. And I don't share what's mine. Her breath caught, anger and confusion colliding. I am not yours, she shot back, echoing the words from the hospital. Before he could answer, the elevator chimed. A group of men in suits entered, his personal physicians, followed by his legal advisor. They carried files, their expressions grim. Mr. Blackwell, the lead doctor began cautiously, the transfusion stabilized you, but there's something you need to know. Adrian's gaze flickered, sharp with suspicion. Say it. The doctor hesitated, then turned toward Elena. Her blood, it wasn't just a match. It was a perfect match. Down to rare markers we've never seen in anyone else we've tested. That level of compatibility, it suggests more than coincidence. Elena's stomach dropped. What are you saying? The physician's voice lowered. Biologically, it's as if she were family. The room froze. Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. Family? Impossible. She had no family left. Everyone she loved was gone, buried in shallow graves of poverty. Adrian's expression didn't change, but his hands curled into fists at his sides. His gaze flicked to her, unreadable, dangerous. What the hell does that mean? We need to run further tests, the doctor said quickly. But such a rare genetic link could only mean a shared lineage. A ripple of tension cut through the room. Adrian dismissed the doctors with a wave of his hand, his voice cold. Leave us. When the door shut, silence slammed down like a weight. Elena's voice broke first. Family? That's absurd. I don't know you. I don't know your world. Adrian stepped closer, his stare drilling into her. And yet your blood kept me alive when no one else's could. Tell me, Elena, what aren't you telling me? Her throat tightened. Nothing. I don't know why my blood saved you. I don't know why fate keeps throwing me in your path. But don't you dare accuse me of hiding anything. For the first time, Adrian's mask cracked. Pain flickered in his eyes, sharp and raw. He turned away, gripping the edge of the table until his knuckles whitened. My father died in this same apartment, he said quietly. Collapsed the same way I did. The doctors never found a match strong enough to save him. If your blood had been there then, he'd still be alive. Elena froze. His father, his loss. The cold, untouchable CEO was standing before her, wounded not by business wars, but by grief that had never healed. Something in her chest softened. Against her will, she whispered, I'm sorry. Adrian turned back, his eyes locking onto hers. The grief was gone now, replaced by something else, something dangerous, magnetic. Don't be sorry. Be honest. Who are you really? Her lips parted, but she had no answer. She didn't know herself anymore. All she knew was that the city's most powerful man was staring at her like she was both salvation and threat. Before she could respond, the elevator chimed again. A woman stepped out, tall, elegant, dressed in crimson silk, her smile sharp as a blade. Well, she drawled, her gaze sliding over Elena with disdain. Isn't this interesting? The mighty Adrian Blackwell, nearly killed, now playing house with a stray girl. Elena stiffened. Adrian's expression turned glacial. Leave, he snapped. But the woman only smirked, eyes glinting. Not before I tell you what your precious little savior has been hiding. The glass walls of the CEO's office reflected the city lights like a restless ocean of fireflies. Inside, silence pressed heavy, broken only by the ticking of a gold clock on the wall. Adrian Blackwell sat behind his vast mahogany desk, his presence commanding, yet different now, haunted, alive when he should have been dead. Across from him, Elena shifted uneasily in the leather chair. Her thrift store jeans and faded hoodie clashed with the luxury around her, but her eyes held something stronger than diamonds: courage. You shouldn't be here, Adrian said finally, his voice low, strained, but edged with steel. Her heart hammered. I didn't ask to be here. Your men brought me. And if you're worried about me spilling your miracle, trust me, I don't even have anyone to tell. Adrian's eyes darkened. He leaned forward, every movement deliberate, his sharp suit framing a body still recovering from the brink of death. Do you even understand what you did? Every doctor in this city declared me beyond saving. And then you, some homeless girl, step in and suddenly I'm alive. Do you think that was a coincidence? Elena swallowed hard, her throat dry. I didn't do it for you. I did it because I know what it's like to watch someone die when you could have done something. I wasn't about to let it happen again. Something flickered in his gaze. Pain, maybe gratitude, quickly buried beneath pride. He rose abruptly, walking to the window. You've entangled yourself in something you can't begin to comprehend. People want me dead. And now he turned back, his stare piercing. They'll want you gone, too. Her breath hitched. What are you saying? Adrian's jaw tightened. You saved me, Elena. That makes you my greatest liability and my only lifeline. The office door burst open before she could reply. Marcus, Adrian's loyal head of security, entered, his face grim. Sir, we intercepted a message. Someone inside the company tipped off the press about a mysterious donor who saved your life. Elena froze, panic rushing through her veins. Adrian's expression turned to ice. Who? Marcus hesitated. We don't know yet. But whoever it is, they're trying to make her a target. He glanced at Elena meaningfully. For a moment, the weight of the world pressed down on her shoulders. Homeless one day, hunted the next. Adrian strode across the room until he stood inches away from her. His voice dropped, husky with urgency. You don't leave this building without my protection. Do you understand? Elena bristled. I don't belong here. I don't belong in your world of bodyguards and secrets. I just wanted to help. You already did. His interruption cut sharp, but his tone softened as he added, and that's why I can't let anything happen to you. Her chest tightened. For a man once known as heartless, the sincerity in his eyes was disarming. Dangerous. Hours later, Adrian walked her through the private corridors of Blackwell Tower. The city sprawled beyond the glass, a glittering kingdom he ruled, and she barely survived within. Why me? She asked quietly as the elevator descended. You could have anyone protecting you, anyone at your side. Why keep me? Adrian's gaze locked on hers, intense and unreadable. Because no one else in my life has ever chosen me for the man, not the CEO. You didn't even know who I was when you saved me. That makes you, his voice caught, rare vulnerability breaking through. Different. Her heart raced, heat rising in her cheeks. She wanted to speak, but the elevator doors slid open, and Marcus stood waiting with a folder in hand, his face stormy. Sir, Marcus said, his tone sharp with urgency, we found the leak. It wasn't the press. It was your brother. The words landed like a thunderclap. Adrian's eyes went dark, every line of his face tightening. Elena's breath caught as she whispered, Your own family wants you dead? Adrian said nothing, but his silence was louder than any denial. His jaw clenched, his fists curled at his sides. And in that silence, Elena realized something chilling. This wasn't just a business war. It was personal. The heavy double doors of the CEO's private office slammed shut, the sound reverberating through the marble floors like a gavel striking judgment. Elena flinched but stood her ground. On the other side of the room, Adrian Knight, the man the world knew as untouchable, ruthless, indestructible, was pacing like a caged lion. His shirt was half unbuttoned, his tie loosened, his composure fractured in a way no board member, no investor, no enemy had ever seen. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice hoarse, though his gaze never left her. You don't understand what your presence means. Elena swallowed, her pulse quickening. I wouldn't be here if I didn't care. You almost died, Adrian. And I, her voice faltered, softer now, I couldn't walk away after what happened. The words lingered between them, fragile, dangerous. Adrian stopped pacing, turning toward her with eyes sharp enough to cut. Do you know what you've done? He asked. Your blood runs through my veins. You kept me alive when everyone else failed. That ties me to you in a way I don't know how to escape." Elena's breath caught. "Do you want to escape?" The silence that followed was louder than thunder. He closed the distance between them slowly, each step deliberate, his presence overwhelming. When he finally stopped in front of her, his hand lifted as if to touch her face, but then dropped, trembling slightly at his side. "I can't afford this," Adrian whispered. "You've already seen more of me than anyone has. Weakness, desperation, the things I bury so deep the world will never know."
His jaw tightened.
"But you saw it. And you stayed." Elena blinked back sudden tears. "Because you're not just the cold CEO the world thinks you are. You're human. And maybe no one else can see that, but I do." For the first time, something cracked in his carefully constructed armor. His chest rose sharply, his lips parted as if she had struck him with truth he didn't want to face. And then, he stepped back, like a man retreating from a fire he couldn't risk touching. "You don't understand the cost," he said, his voice rough. "Being close to me will destroy you. There are people watching, enemies waiting for me to make a mistake. And if they see you, if they know what you mean to me—" The words died on his lips, but Elena felt the storm behind them. She straightened, her chin lifting. "You're trying to protect me, but Adrian, I've already been destroyed once. Living on the streets, forgotten, invisible, it almost killed me long before you came into my life. Do you really think your world scares me more than being unloved, unseen, unwanted?" Her defiance stunned him. For a long moment, he said nothing, just stared, breathing like a man on the edge of a decision he couldn't take back. Finally, in a voice so low it was almost a confession, he said, "You are the only reason I'm still alive, and that terrifies me." Elena's heart twisted. She wanted to reach for him, to close the gap, but before she could, the office phone rang. The sharp, shrill sound shattered the fragile intimacy. Adrian snatched the receiver, his tone snapping back into the ruthless CEO everyone else knew. "Night." He listened, his expression darkening by the second. "Double the security. No one gets near this building without my authorization." He slammed the phone down, his jaw tight, his gaze flicking back to Elena with urgency. "What happened?" she asked, alarm creeping into her voice. His eyes burned with a cold fire. "Someone leaked that a mystery woman saved my life. And now they're looking for you." Elena's blood ran cold. "Which means," Adrian said, his voice low and lethal, "the war has already begun."